What's up, everyone? Welcome to Pat's Chat. I am back from Walt Disney World. I'm wearing my Mickey Mouse sweatshirt right now.
Wow.
I've got an orange bird sipper behind me. I'm just
Wow.
full on still in Walt Disney World mode to the point yesterday where I was like, we were talking about when we were going to podcast. I was like, did anything even happen? I mean, I've still got all the Twitter notifications sent to my phone, but like, I don't know if anyone's gone to Disney World lately, but you got to spend like basically your entire day on the phone, which for me, I have to do that anyway, so it wasn't really that big of a deal. But I would imagine that that's not the greatest perk for a lot of people.
Yeah, I am not proud of the Disney dad that I was last summer. I went with the phone and the planning, and we got to go here and we got to do this. But like, you got to. If
Yeah,
God bless anyone that can go down there and just freestyle it and just have fun, because they make it like a video game basically, but real life. And it paid off though. It was a great trip. I'm sure you had a great one as well.
it was fun. Yeah, at one point we were in line at Epcot, and the people behind me were like, "Oh, like Magic Kingdom was terrible. Like all the lines are bad." And I was like, "Yeah, you just gotta pay for Genie Plus. Like if you're gonna be
Yeah,
spending, and not to like." I think we're probably going to spend the first 45 minutes or so of this podcast on Disney World. Then we'll get into some
sure.
Patriot stuff.
It's
Um,
useful advice. People will need it. Trust me.
But like you're already spending thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on a vacation. And like this whole Genie Plus thing allows you to basically like cut in line, and it's another like anywhere from like 15 to $20 per day per
Yeah.
person. But just like if you're already spending all that money, you might as well just spend the extra money. Like yeah, it sucks,
Yeah.
but your other alternative is to just not have any fun at all. So
I
like
mean, if you go
just do
to
it.
Disney World, if you go like 6 times a year, I could see it being
Right.
a prohibitive expense. But if you go once, like we went once and might not ever go again. So obviously we're okay. But I had to, I'm not, I wouldn't say I'm cheap, but I'm very cautious with my spending in
Yes.
life. Very thoughtful. If I can save money here or there, I'll do it. But at Disney World, I just had to eliminate the concept of
Oh
money
yeah.
for the 5, 6 days I was there and just accept that whatever happened, like don't even read the credit card statement,
No.
don't check anything,
No.
just click pay and move on because you had a good trip. Now that's how they win, but that is the reality of Disney World.
Yeah, I was a little bit shocked when I looked at my credit card bill
Don't look at it.
when I got home. But the one thing, and we will get to the Patriots in literally five
That's
seconds.
chat.
But one thing that you could do there is like charge things onto your room or like a magic band type of situation.
Of course.
And like I don't do it that often, but sometimes I don't have my wallet on me or whatever it is, and it's just like I'll just like tap my room card or whatever. But then all of that just gets folded into the folio for your room expense. So as I was like, when I got that bill, and it's on a bill, it's just like this is how much you paid. I was like, whoa! I did not realize how much I put on my card because it's
Yeah.
basically like you're not spending money. Like you're just like, oh yeah, like I'll just deal with this later. This is not
Yeah.
something I have to pay for now.
The Magic Band, terrible invention for that very reason. But we ran out of water. We got groceries delivered, had a case of water, like maybe 2 cases, and it was July. So we ran out the last night. And so I went down to the machine and I got like four. Did I already tell this story? I got
No, I
like
don't
four
think so.
water bottles and it was like $6. So it was like $24 on four water. I'm like, yeah, that's ideal, I would say, in this environment to spend $25 on four plastic bottles of water. But again, it was Disney World. It doesn't count. Just
Right.
just take it as a loss and you move
You just
on and think about
yeah.
all the times in your life you've saved money. It's for that moment. It
It's
evens
for
out.
that very moment. So yeah, but it was a fun time. Like as I was saying before the podcast, my 5-year-old went on like every single ride. She went on Tower of Terror. She did everything. She was a real trooper. My 2-year-old was kind of good, like as good as a 2-year-old can be. But biggest news since I left, since we last podcasted on Super Bowl Sunday night, Patriots are bringing back Matthew Slater, and I feel like this, like the Patriots just announced it with
hmm
like a image, like a I don't know, a graphic on
Not
Twitter that he was
not
coming
just
back.
also with quotes, a whole statement,
Right.
it was like a Friday news dump, like 3 o'clock,
Yeah.
3:30 on Friday. But yeah, you're getting quotes from Kraft and Belichick in announcing of a re-signing. Like this offseason is wild. Like it's just not the biggest thing in the world, but you never got that in the past. I don't think.
Right.
Even a player of that stature with the organization, it would probably break via reporter. This coming out like with a press release is, well, it's just hard to get used to. That's all.
It is, and obviously it's ultimately a good thing to have Matthew Slater back in the fold. Like,
Let me ask you:
what is
did you think he was retired? I did.
um I probably would have leaned more heavily that way. I probably would have given it like a 55-45 retiring, just based on, I guess, like his reaction before their final game of the season and like some of the quotes that came out after that and everything like that. And like even him on that podcast I didn't listen to, like Pastor Chat or whatever it was, um, like him saying they'd be open to a role on the staff. Like it just seemed like it was leaning
Yeah.
that way. So I was a little surprised.
My guess, not that you asked, my guess as to why he would play, I feel like there's a balance mentally, emotionally, where, all right, do I want to keep doing this? The workout regimen, the diet, the time away from family, and then balancing that with $2.5 million to do that. I feel like
Right.
the answer is always going to sway toward yes if you're physically capable of doing it. So he is 37, or he's going to be 37 in
Yes.
September, or 38. I think he might be turning 38 in September.
He was born in
Which-
85. I know that much. He's a year older than I am.
Yeah, college though. I think he
Yep.
did college.
College would have been
He was
03 to
drafted in
07, I think, right?
08. No, he was drafted in 08. So he did college when we
Oh.
did. No, because
Yes.
08 would be the spring of 08. So he finished in the yeah. He's
Yes.
college. He's a college.
Yeah,
Maybe
college.
he went younger. You never know. Athletes, it's different. Doesn't really matter. For his role, I think he can still do it at that age, and I think that's an easy decision when you're talking millions of dollars. Because whatever that role would have been on staff, I'm sure it would have paid slightly less than in the millions.
Yeah.
I'm guessing just
a
a feel
fraction
on
as
that.
much. I mean, it's not the most interesting conversation to have because it's not even one that like I know a decent amount about football. Like it's my job to know a decent amount about football, or it will be
Touchdowns,
my job. It will be my job again in like 8 days, something like that, to know a lot about football. But I feel like Matthew Slater's career is like the shelf life on core special teamers. I mean, like it's been extended, and I feel like he's revolutionizing that position. Where like you would think that a position based purely on speed wouldn't be the best job for a 37-year-old. I know, or a 38-year-old, soon to be 38-year-old. I know that I personally could not have a job based on my speed at this age. But
No.
I don't know. Maybe it's not even so much of a conversation. It's just like a statement that it's pretty incredible that Matthew Slater can still do that at this high of a level. Because like, how many wide receivers, another position built on speed, have continued to excel into their late 30s? Like the answer is basically like Jerry Rice and no one else.
Yeah. I guess when it's just maybe between 4 and 10 plays a game, it's different.
It is, yeah.
I think it's worth noting, not to be a wet blanket on it, but when the Patriots were elite and winning between 12 and 14 games every year and their special teams was among the best in the league, it was sort of like a cool thing. Now
Right.
that they're just mediocre and their special teams are kind of a detriment.
Terrible last year.
Yeah, and not to pin it on him by any means, but if he gets all the credit when they're great as the leader, when they're bad, I mean, it just seems sort of overdone. I would say the focus and attention on it, and with Cam Akord back, as far as we know, I don't know how much is going to change next year. So
But then Joe Judge is also back, and we don't know what his role is.
we don't, but I don't know. Ultimately, we've talked about it on this podcast that the leadership and having a player who actually has won Super Bowls in New England on the team is important. But then I'm thinking, well, what's it gotten them? If the difference between Slater and McCourty being around is being a 500 team or being a sub 500 team, then I don't know that you're getting the payoff that you might want, and that we both admit is like valuable, but the extent of that value is probably muted a little bit.
It's essentially just hurting their draft position without anything to show for it, playoff wise or winning wise. And I don't know how much they have to do with finishing 500 rather than being like a 4-win team or something like that. But yeah, I don't know. I would also say that I don't know. Obviously, Matthew Slater is an important leader for the team. I think a lot of players lean on him. religion wise, probably, and just like family leadership wise in general, which certainly helps the team. But ultimately, he's a special teams captain, and that doesn't impact a very large portion of the team. But I don't know. It's the anti Matthew Slater rhetoric is usually saved for the Adam Jones of the world. So
I get it. I get it. My bad. But
it's okay. But like, it's fair. I've been meaning to a friend of mine who's a writer. I don't know if he would want me to say his name. He sent me a tweet. I think it was Matt Chatham who tweeted that after the Hall of Fame, that Patriots fans should be hoping for Steve Tasker to get into the Hall of Fame, because that would be the path for Matthew Slater to get into the Hall of Fame. And this person's ultimate point was like, is Matthew Slater really a Hall of Famer? My initial takeaway to that tweet is I don't really think that Steve Tasker has to get into the Hall of Fame for Matthew Slater to get into the Hall of Fame. Like, I don't think that Steve Tasker is that much better of a special teams player or whatever than Matthew Slater, where he would have to break that seal before Slater does. And Slater's made more Pro Bowls. I don't know what the All-Pro count is, but I also think that the Matthew Slater factor is the fact that he's been on 3 Super Bowl winning teams and 2 other teams that made the Super Bowl, which to me probably ascends him above Steve Tasker on, if we want one special teams player in the Hall of Fame, I'd probably pick Slater over Tasker based on the Super Bowl wins, even though I don't think that that's like a fair way to quantify special teams play. But this person was also arguing against either one going to the Hall of Fame. And as much as I think it would be fun for Matthew Slater to be a Hall of Famer, it's kind of tough. There's always going to be, I think, a player at an offensive or defensive position that feels more deserving. Like this year, do you really want to put like Reggie Wayne didn't make the Hall of Fame. Steve Smith didn't make the Hall of Fame.
Rodney Harrison didn't make the Hall of Fame.
Who didn't make it?
Rodney Harrison.
Rodney Harrison didn't make the Hall of Fame. Yeah. There's like a backload of players at very valuable positions who are always going to be left off that list. And putting Matthew Slater or putting Steve Tasker in over Reggie Wayne or over Steve Smith or over one of these other guys, it's always going to be difficult. It's always going to be tough, I think.
Yeah. I mean, we're an honest podcast, right? We're honest.
Yes. I think that to a fault, maybe.
I mean, Steve Tasker's NFL career began a year before I was born and extended until I was 11. And when I was a wee boy, and if I did catch a Bills game at the age of 8, I probably wasn't really honed in on the special teams. So I don't know that I'm qualified to evaluate Steve Tasker as a player. But yeah, I agree. And we might have said this about, or at least I did, like when people say Dante Scarnecchia belongs in the Hall of Fame because he's the best O-line coach ever. I'm like, okay, like, yeah, you could say that. It might be right. But like, how is that going to be proven when I don't know. There's a ton of head coaches that are in the Hall of Fame. So it's probably a similar comparison where we are New England centric, but I think the fact that they were the most high profile team at a point when the league had reached new popularity probably helps him. But ultimately, I don't think I care. I don't, no disrespect. It'd be cool for him, but I don't think I care.
That was my initial thought too, is that I don't exactly have a strong opinion on it. I think it would be fun. That is my opinion.
I care more about Edelman's candidacy based on the postseason numbers because I think that's a cool conversation. Obviously, the regular season, there's not one qualifier for there, but being Tom Brady's number 1 receiver and being the number 1 receiver on 3 different Super Bowl runs is pretty cool. And there's actually a track record of guys getting in based on postseason resume. Joe Namath being like number 1, but
I mean, Kurt Warner.
Yes,
is kind of a bizarre Hall of Famer.
He lost his job. He lost his job to Trent Green, I want to say, in St. Louis. He lost his job to Eli Manning in New York, and he lost his job to Matt Leinart in Arizona. And
he might have lost his job as a stock boy to someone that we don't even know. Also,
that's true. He might have been bad at bagging, but a great story. And that's the thing. MVPs, 2 MVP seasons in there, no, or maybe 1. But a Super Bowl MVP. I think was he the Super Bowl MVP in '99?
Yes, he was.
Okay. I mean, it's like an unbelievable story. And so it's like, all right, there's your Hall of Fame measure. If you're a great story,
if you're a
who
great story,
won a championship.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think people think Kurt Warner won in Arizona. He actually lost that game. But
Kurt Warner had more bad seasons than good seasons. I'm saying that as someone who hasn't looked at his stats in like 10 years, but I've always been very anti-Kurt Warner Hall of Fame.
I like him on the radio, though. He does the Monday night broadcasts with Kevin Harlan.
Oh, yeah.
One of the best football broadcasts out there. I like it a lot.
What'd you think of his film?
Didn't catch it yet.
Didn't catch it yet either.
What's that one called?
Kurt Warner, the Kurt Warner story.
Underdog. American Underdog. I didn't catch that one.
It's called American Underdog?
Yeah, it's similar. It's like a sequel to Kid Rock's American Badass album from 2001, except more religious. American Underdog.
American Underdog sounds like...
American Underdog. Watch me pass.
It sounds like if a band was called Underdog, which there's a hardcore band called Underdog, but if there was a band called Underdog and like another band in Europe was called Underdog, then the band in America would have to legally change their name to American Underdog,
like The Office
or something.
Like Blink-182 wanted to be Blink, but there was like an Australian band named Blink. So like, all right, here's some numbers.
Yep.
American Blink.
Blink-182. Yeah, American Blink, American Underdog. But yeah, I don't know. I don't have strong feelings about the Pro Football Hall of Fame, even though we just talked about it for like 15 minutes or so.
I'm with Belichick. Belichick was like, I mean, there's no guidelines, so who cares what I think when everyone has their own opinions.
My last opinion on it is that I do feel like the 2001 to 2018 Patriots, I should say the 2001 to 2018 Patriots. I hate when people say 2018. It's too many words.
There you go.
The 2001 to 2018 Patriots are probably going to be underrepresented in the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Compared to like the 70s Steelers or any other.
And I think that part of that is the way that Bill Belichick wanted to build his teams. He wanted to build a team, not just collect talent, whatever. But when it comes down to it, it's probably going to be Brady, Gronk, Ty Law, Richard Seymour, Bill Belichick, Robert Kraft, and
Kraft should be in.
Like Randy Moss, Darrelle Revis, like other assorted guys who are on a few years, but the core members of those teams probably aren't going to make. Like Vince Wilfork might not make the Hall of Fame.
I think he might, and the reason is I wrote this after you retired because you've seen videos of those meetings, and maybe you don't want to comment because you're more of a prestigious national writer than little old me. But man, do those guys love the smell of their own farts. When those 50 guys get in this room and talk about football players, I could see someone making an impassioned case for Vince Wilfork because there's an element of like, I know ball.
Right.
And I mean, it's true. The guy was a freak athlete at that size and was one of the most impactful players on that defense. Now, granted, they only won 2 Super Bowls in his Patriots tenure, but I think Vince has a chance, but not to derail or even dispute your point, which is true. I don't think Rodney Harrison will get in. I think he hurt too many people physically and emotionally. I don't know that there's any, like Welker has insane numbers, but isn't your prototypical Hall of Fame wide receiver. Is Logan
Mankins going to make the, like he probably should, but that's a weird one.
I hate guard Hall of Fame talk. I just like Alan Faneca and like
Steve Hutchinson.
Who was the Jets center forever?
Kevin Mawai?
Yeah, it's like I don't know, man. Are they Hall of I guess. I don't I watched them block the crap out of people for sure.
One last point on Matthew Slater. And once again,
I love this.
It would be fun.
We don't care about Slater. Here's minute 45
it would be fun if Matthew Slater made the Hall of Fame.
Yes.
It would be kind of absurd if Matthew Slater's in the Hall of Fame and Devin McCourty isn't, right? Like just pure, like who was more impactful to the Patriots dynasty, Matthew Slater or Devin McCourty? Like the answer is Devin McCourty, but Devin McCourty is probably not going to make the Hall of Fame, right?
Probably not, right? I mean, what are his numbers? Games played and championships won are the numbers that stand out. Slater does have the story aspect, if we're talking stories, where his father was a Hall of Famer, obviously. Yep. Scrapping and getting by as a special teamer, like you said, that's a shelf life of usually 3 to 4 years. And then that's it. So to do it for a decade and a half plus, maybe he does. I think we've maximized the Matthew Slater dissection. I think.
All right. Well, next on we don't care about you made our notes, and you actually said in here, talk about Matthew Slater for 35 minutes. So we're cutting it down to 15 minutes. DeMarcus Covington was reportedly requested to interview for the Cardinals defensive coordinator position. He did not get it, but
we don't know if
good
he
for
interviewed.
DeMarcus Covington. What?
We know he was requested. We don't know if he was actually interviewed.
Correct. Yeah, because they got the Eagles.
They made the hiring the
linebackers
next
coach.
day.
Right.
Yeah, which you would think Jonathan Gannon would have a pretty good read on prior to that. So yeah, but I to me, my first reaction was, oh, the D-line coach might be opening. There's a coach looking for a job with a big beard and a pencil in his ear named Matt Patricia who might be able to fill that, but not happening. So not sure where Matt Patricia lands on that. But I don't know. This kind of ties into another note I put in maybe later, is just like every coach mentioned in the hiring cycle is a great, brilliant, young, rising coach. And it's like, guys, not every coach is great. It's just a reality of the business. It's a hard job.
Right.
But anytime you hear any person interviewed or requested to be interviewed, it's like, another rising great coach. It's like, well, maybe not, but I don't know. I think it's positive for DeMarcus Covington.
It's also a self-fulfilling statement, is if there's a young position coach who has been requested to interview for a better job, then he is obviously a young rising coach in the NFL. But I don't know how much it means if, in the case of like Nick Caley, he didn't wind up getting a better job, or in the case of DeMarcus Covington, like you said, we don't even know if he wound up interviewing. But I don't know. I think this speaks, for me, just that how much better the Patriots have done staffing their defensive coaches than they have on offense, to the point where like Matt Patricia is just floating out there in the ether, and the Patriots have such good defensive coaches that they don't need to give him a job on their defensive staff. And I think it was Eric Eager with the new company that he's working for with Thomas Dimitroff. He put out the like weighted best defenses of the last 20, 25 years, something like that. And the 2019 Patriots were very high up there in what was essentially, I think, like adjusted EPA per play to like the era that they were playing in. And you can make a case that the 2019 Patriots played some pretty crappy quarterbacks or crappy offenses that year, but still it was adjusted, and they were very, very high up there.
Can I interrupt you?
Well, yeah.
Because I wrote a lot about that defense that year, and everyone would say that, and I was like, yeah. Do you know the quarterbacks that the 85 Bears played or the 2000 Ravens played? Like, you don't. I looked it up. A lot of bums. So it's like, it's kind of, you play who you play, and if you win the championship at the end of the year, you get remembered as a great defense. If you don't, then you don't. And that's the 2019 Patriots.
It is. And my larger point on that was that I've said it before. I just think that Steve Belichick is probably like one of the more underrated assistants in the NFL, based purely on his name and what people assume is the nepotism factor of him having a job as the Patriots linebackers coach and defensive play caller. But the simple fact remains that he was the defensive play caller on that team. He was the defensive play caller last year, and his defenses, save for maybe 1 or 2 years, have been among the best in the NFL. So I don't know. He's doing something right. We can't give all the credit to Gerard Mayo and Bill Belichick if he's the guy on the sideline at least relaying the plays. He's got a big role on a defense that has been among the best in the NFL as long as he's had a big role.
We need a team to request Steve Belichick to interview for defensive, just to see what happens, just to see what Bill does and says. That would be funny. But no, I think I shared it on this podcast. My favorite Steve Belichick interaction, that Super Bowl Media Day.
I think so, yes.
When I asked him what he was doing for the first Rams Super Bowl, and he's like, I don't know. I was like, how old were you? And he's like, I don't know. And I was like, okay. I mean, you're not going to be in this story, but I appreciate the time. It's like you're probably on video celebrating on the field, but it's fine. It's fine. I don't need it. It's cool. Don't worry about it.
Did you listen to him when he was on the Chris Long podcast?
No.
Oh, he was great. It was like literally a million times better than he's ever been with the local New England media.
Did you listen to him on the Tom Brady Jim Gray podcast when he pretended to be his father and everyone thought it was Bill?
I did not.
Stay
but
woke. Stay woke.
I'll always contend that everyone it's probably not something that he likes hearing, but everyone tells him that he sounds exactly like his dad. Everyone on the Patriots staff sounds like Bill Belichick. Nick Caserio,
Caserio was a clone.
Exactly like Bill Belichick. And if you watch those videos, there's I forgot what they were even called, where it show like behind the scenes Patriots, whatever.
Oh, do your job.
Yeah, do your
got
job.
Them in trouble in Cleveland against Cincinnati once.
When they do the scouting ones, every single scout on the Patriots has like the Bill Belichick accent and cadence and everything. I think that that's just the way that everyone in that building talks and has talked. So everyone from top to bottom just picks it up.
Yeah.
It's not, I don't even know if it's because Steve Belichick is related to Bill Belichick.
No.
I think it's more the fact that he's just spent so much time in that building.
But like Brian Belichick doesn't sound like Bill. So,
not to the same degree, yeah.
No. But Caserio, I think, sounded more like Bill than Steve.
I agree. I 100%
I would
agree.
be freaked out. Whenever Nick Caserio talked, I had to like run away because I was like, you stole the man's voice. It's freaky. So I'm not sure. Like, you make points, thoughtful points, and then I just come in with stupid nonsense. So I'm not sorry, but that's just kind of how it works.
No, it's fair. Patriots are increasing ticket prices.
Oh yeah, you missed this, so I can explain it to you pretty well if you missed.
But they're
the
making
news.
parking free. That's
so
good.
all of the lots across from Route 1, the Patriots lots, will be free. However, ticket prices stadium wide are going up. It's the first stadium wide increase since like 2008 or something. But they've had incremental increases in different sections, all that. But stadium side parking for season ticket holders used to be $80 on game day. Now it's $25 per game. So they're making parking cheaper and the tickets more expensive, which to me I think is like good business on their part because for one, if we're in a car with 4 people and all of our tickets go up $50, there's $200 that is offset by the $50. It offsets the $50 we would have made in my car parking. It'll speed things up going in. It won't change anything going out. They've had the delayed release lot for a while where it's free to park. And then as long as you wait 75 minutes, you could leave. Now you actually get paid to park there. They'll give you a $50 gift card for going in there. You just can't leave until 75 minutes after the game ends, which as a media member, I got to get in on that.
I know.
Can I get a little? No, I'm just kidding. But that's a good incentive on a 1 p.m. game if you want to hang out after. Not so much on the night games, but
no.
But what I was thinking with the ticket price increases, because there were supposed to be 9 games this year. So season ticket holders, I'm not wealthy. I don't have season tickets.
Well,
so
you also don't need to.
You know what I mean? I don't know how that business works, but I think they put a deposit down at a certain point with the idea of there being 9 regular season, 9 home games. But then one of those was moved to Germany. So in that letter to season ticket holders, it said 10% has been credited to your account. So they're probably not going to really feel a ticket price increase this year, especially with the parking going down as much as it was. And then next year there's 8 home games. So they might not feel either. It's really not until 2025 when the full 9-game ticket price increase is felt by season ticket holders, which is pretty far away in NFL terms. So I think by business standards, that Kraft fella knows what he's doing. Because it's news obviously when teams raise ticket prices, especially after missing the playoffs.
But it's a good point. They're not going to feel it until the future.
They countered it with the parking news.
Right.
To sort of, but I don't know. I think ultimately,
no one's going to remember by the time they actually feel it.
Yeah, my bigger question is demand on Patriots tickets and what might happen, because we talked about Christmas Eve 1 p.m. game against the Bengals. You could get in pretty cheap, probably the cheapest of the Bill Belichick tenure, maybe minus 2008, when Matt Castle was there and the outlook wasn't so great. I don't know how many more years of meh you can get through where you can still charge what you charge, because it's a whole thing. It's not like going downtown and popping over. It's a whole day. It's a big commitment. I don't know. They need to get the team better to make that still the attraction that it's been for 20 plus years.
And there's not a direct path to them hitting. Like, there's a very indirect path to them being very competitive this upcoming season. And if you're not that competitive this year, then you might not be that competitive in 2024. Also, one final point on the ticket prices and parking. There's nothing I hate more than paying for parking. Like if I'm booking a hotel, like even when I was traveling covering the Patriots, I was booking a hotel, and it was like
$40 a night to park.
Yeah, it was like, all right, the hotel costs this much, but then it's $20 per night to park. Even for me, though, that I was expensing that to Nesson or like PFF or whoever it was at the time, like I was like, that's a pain in the ass. I don't want to have to do the math myself. I would rather find a hotel somewhere in the suburbs where I can park for free. Disney World, bringing it back to Disney World, has done a smart thing where you can now pay, you can park at resorts for free, which
Let's not give them too much credit for that. I mean,
you can't, but at least on that folio that you get, there's not like 5 nights of $20 per night for parking or whatever it is. And
I mean, I found it jarring when I park. I know when you go places, you expect to open the wallet more than you want. But when I would pull into the media lot at Gillette and it would say game day parking $80, it's like,
right,
damn, like that.
Yeah,
that is a lot of money that adds up for just to leave your car for a few hours. That's a bit excessive. So it's good to peel back on that for sure. Even if you end up paying more for on the ticket, ultimately, I think in this era of resale being sort of legitimized with verified resale and whatnot, I don't know if you want to go to a game and the Patriots are so, you'd probably be able to for cheaper now than you might have before. But I don't know. This probably is bad news for the private lots that like to charge $50. Why would anyone do that when they could just stroll up a little more, get closer, and park for free? But I don't know. The easy out probably is an appeal. These are things that you and I don't. What do they call us? Us charlatans in the media. We don't really deal with on a weekly basis. But
no,
we should have had a guest for that.
To our point, the Patriots might not be competitive, and they might have to worry about season ticket holders maintaining those tickets. The Patriots were given between plus 5,500 and plus 6,000 odds to win the Super Bowl. That's between 7th and 9th lowest in the NFL. That's really low. That feels too low, given the fact that they were relatively competitive for most of last season. We're right up against it there at the end of the year to actually get into the playoffs. I know that doesn't mean the same thing as it used to, since there's a lot of teams that make the playoffs now. But I don't know. I'm surprised that it's that low. Are you?
Surprised? I wouldn't say surprised. I just think it's kind of revealing in the way we view the offseason, where they've changed the coaching staff, they've done this or that. I think ultimately, nationally and odds maker wise, until they make significant player upgrades, no one's really going to look at them any differently. So the teams that they're grouped with, like they're grouped in with Pittsburgh, Carolina, Seattle. You could argue Seattle had a better season than them last year.
Yeah,
they might have. Washington. Now they're markedly given lower odds than like Tampa, Tennessee, Atlanta, Chicago, Indy, Arizona, and Houston. So that's that. But I'm not totally shocked. It's sort of it's a quarterback driven market.
Yeah. Until he proves that he
could
be as good or better as he was as a rookie, then yeah.
So, and you're in the AFC where seemingly all the good teams are in the league. So not that shocking. I guess all the things we could say, like, oh, they almost beat the Bengals. If not for the kick returns in Week 18, maybe they can compete with the Bills. For all those spins on positivity, I feel like the cold, hard facts are just like, well, they're not there yet. That's how people are going to view them.
Yeah, that's entirely fair. It's still just a little bit shocking that the Patriots have fallen that far to where they're in the bottom.
Do you want to see the other AFC East teams before we move on? We've got Miami's plus 3,000, plus 3,500, somewhere in that range. The Jets are actually better than that, plus 2,500, plus 3,000.
It's the Rodgers factor.
That's probably it.
First of all, I don't think the Jets are getting Rodgers. I think that there's a higher probability that the Raiders will. But also, like, Aaron Rodgers might just be overrated at this point, right? He sucked last year.
I give him one spite year where he might kick ass for a year because he's so whiny and sort of be like, oh, I proved you, and then that would be it. But interestingly, the Bills are still second. It's Chiefs, then Bills. And it's just kind of like at this point, Lucy pulling the football away from Charlie Brown. Like, The odds makers should do Bills fans a favor and make them like 8th, because last year they went in as the odds-on favorite to win the Super Bowl, and my thought was like, this is the Buffalo Bills we're talking about. Like, you got to be, I don't know, that's a recipe for heartbreak.
Where are the Eagles?
The Eagles are 4th, plus 900, plus 800, around there with San Francisco, Cincinnati, that group. So it's basically Kansas City and Buffalo, and then the next group would be Niners, Eagles, Bengals. Then there's a big gap. Then you get into the Cowboys. And
Eagles are going to be very talented next year. But like the amount of coaches they've lost this like, it's crazy.
I thought that too. I placed it with like I tweeted it out, and then immediately I was like, it's crazy that the Patriots won 3 Super Bowls with Weiss and Cornell, because nowadays they'd be scooped up after one. And I was like,
God, yeah.
The Eagles didn't even win. Like, they had a great team all year, and they didn't win. They played decently in the Super Bowl, but you also had a defense give up 2 uncovered touchdowns and commit a penalty by getting caught in the same similar play. Yeah. And that head coach was hired. I mean, that defensive coordinator was hired as a head coach 5 minutes after the game. So I don't know. It's a bit strange that you can't be good anymore because immediately your top assistants are gone. Like, that's the NFL line of thinking. Ask it.
I could do this, but only because I was at the Senior Bowl last year. Would you, if there was a lineup with only Jonathan Gannon and Shane Steichen, would you be able to differentiate between the two?
Prior to the cringeworthy video of Jonathan Gannon introducing himself to all the Cardinals players, no. After that, yes, his image is burned in my mind. I don't know if you've seen that. It's a tough video to get through. I watched it Friday, and I was like, oof, this is secondhand embarrassment. And no one really seemed to say anything, so I'm kind of negative on Twitter. I want to try to bring less darkness to the world, so I didn't say anything. And then over the course of the weekend, everyone was making fun of it, and I was like, where were you all on Friday? Like, that's a tough video. But to answer your question, no. No. And I don't know. Look, do you think there was
both
trouble
like
in Arizona?
Skinny white guys who probably went to college between 2004 and 2008.
Probably, so we should know them better. Do you think there was any issues in Arizona getting a head coach, given their whole situation and how committed they are, how locked in they are to Kyler Murray? They got a defensive coach.
It took them a while. I don't think so. If only because they got like one of the guys who was considered one of the hotter candidates. I know that, his star has fallen a little bit, maybe based on how the Eagles performed in the Super Bowl and maybe down the stretch run there. But I mean, Gannon was considered a hot head coaching candidate as far back as last year. So it was just a weird offseason for them. Like, I did not expect them to get Monty Austin for it. I thought that they were going to promote Adrian Wilson to that GM job. It was kind of surprising that they skipped him over. And then I might not have pegged them as being a team to go after Gannon, but so that might have been more of like an Austin Fort hire.
Yeah, but listen, sometimes you run into Juju Smith-Schuster and Sky Moore, and you forget that Travis Kelce's playing. These things happen. It's sometimes.
Who's their OC? Who's the Cardinals OC?
I don't know. You have to check that out. But it's not Eric Bieniemy who went to Washington. I think we're all hoping, by the way, that the Commanders suddenly have the number 1 offense in the league and the Chiefs fall apart offensively. I think that would be the ultimate conclusion to the Eric Bieniemy mystery and saga over the past few. I have my doubts in the Commanders' offense, I'll be honest. But that would be the big NFL news of the week while you were gone as well, was Bieniemy going laterally, which is, I don't know. Hopefully that can resolve itself with performance or something, because the excuses, I'm tired of the theories and excuses and people commenting on how Eric Bieniemy interviews. It's just sort of like, maybe you don't know. Maybe you don't. Maybe you don't.
And there was even some people being like, no, it actually wasn't a lateral move because he's also assistant head coach. It's like, okay, come on. Like, he's like I don't know. It's crazy.
I hope it works out.
Yes. Let's get through the rest of the stuff in the next 10 minutes so that we have a slightly shorter podcast, because there is less to get to over the next few weeks of the off season. But biggest news, we bruised. What is that?
Big Bang Theory.
Oh, interesting.
Never heard of it?
I've
Thursdays
heard of it
on CBS.
I've never watched that show.
Not great. Not a fan. Anyways.
Wow.
What you got?
Patriots brought back Conor McDermott. They re-signed the man.
Thank God.
They caused Bill Belichick to say, "Thank God we have him." I don't know. It doesn't mean anything to me really, but
No, I just wanted to get that in.
Their depth at offensive tackle was so horrendous that I don't know. It's almost a big deal that they brought him back. At least he's one other body who they felt confident enough in to start.
Yeah, we should mention for anyone that might be confused or didn't listen to every minute of Pat's chat. In December, maybe toward week 17, Bill Belichick was asked about Conor McDermott, and he literally said, "Thank God we have him," twice, which to me is the line of the season. That is the line of the 22 season. Thank God we have Conor McDermott, a guy who was drafted by this team, has been a journeyman, who was plucked off the Jets practice squad. Thank God we have him. That was the state of the 2022 Patriots. So they'll probably go tackle in the draft. But segue, I looked at all the receivers in the draft, and it's kind of funny because there's a ton of guys that we would always say are small, shifty, quick slot receivers, with Zay Flowers being the top one and a handful of other guys. But can we even say, oh, that guy fits the Patriot system anymore, considering we don't exactly know what that system is?
Right, especially since I mentioned this probably a month ago or so. Bill O'Brien's offense with the Texans was either throw the ball to DeAndre Hopkins or throw the ball to no one else. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins was massively over everyone else in receiving yards under Bill O'Brien with the Houston Texans. And DeAndre Hopkins is not Wes Welker. He's not Julian Edelman. He's not Troy Brown.
Right. Yeah. So, and I'm guessing, I haven't grinded the tape. I'll be honest. I haven't grinded the Alabama tape from last year. I haven't looked at the Penn State offense that he ran. But I'm guessing that there's going to be certain collegiate elements that weren't here the last time Bill O'Brien ran the Patriots offense, because he had been pretty far removed from his collegiate coaching experience at the time. So it's not necessarily when he ran the Patriots offense before, he's not running that this time. It's a different era of the league, which is another point we'll get to. Some people still think it is that era based on coaches being available. But I don't know. The number one guy, people like receivers. I thought it would be exciting to look at these receivers. It wasn't that much. But Quentin Johnston, to me, to read about him and study him immediately after watching A.J. Brown in the Super Bowl, just a big-bodied number one type, was kind of that's the kind of guy that can change games. When you can throw a slant for 6 yards that can turn into 45 yards. I just don't know if maybe Patriots fans are going to be gun-shy on a player like that, given the N'Keal Harry investment in 2019. But I don't know. To me, if you add a slot guy that can move the chains, it's kind of okay. But is he going to dramatically add wins to the ledger? I'm not so sure.
The guy that I'm the most intrigued by, and same with you, I haven't really grinded the tape and everything like that, but last year, after the Bulls or whatever, Jackson Smith and Jigba for Ohio State. Everyone was saying if he was eligible to enter the draft, he would have been the number one wide receiver last year. And then he has a season where he's kind of injured, didn't play a whole lot last year, and now he's fallen very far, it seems, down the wide receiver rankings. But I don't know. I kind of look at him and say he was so good in 2021. If he had just taken last year off, if he had done, that's what Jamar Chase did, right? He took a season off. If he had done the Jamar Chase, he probably
was that
would
2020.
Yeah, he probably would be a top 5, top 10 pick, whatever it is. But just the fact that he played last year has now lowered his draft stock so much. I'm trading up to get him if I have to. I'm taking him wherever I need to based on what he showed in 2021. And he's not that big prototypical wide receiver. He's 6 foot, 200 pounds, something like that. But I think that, I don't know, DeAndre Hopkins isn't a 6'4", 215 pound wide receiver.
Antonio Brown. I always go to Antonio Brown. He's
right.
the best receiver I've ever seen. He's 5'11", maybe 5'10".
Yeah. So that's still my guy. It's still Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Right. He led the Buckeyes in receiving in a year where they had Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson.
Right. Yes.
So yeah, no, that seems like a good value pick if you can get it for not 14, You know, maybe 14 turns into 25 and 60, and you get it with 20. I don't know, but
Right.
it's probably too early to do draft mechanics like that. But I think that's a good value type player to watch. But they should be able to add someone along those lines at some point in the draft. But that being said, every year we go into it thinking that they don't. They do. They get 7 guards or something. So
I know it is too early for that, and like I said, we should probably get out here relatively soon. But I know their need at tackle is high.
yeah,
And like I know how valuable tackles are,
mm-hmm.
but I also look at what the Eagles did the last couple of years by drafting Devontae Smith and by trading for AJ Brown, and that alone didn't vault them into the Super Bowl, but it really, really, really helped. And obviously, it also helps that they've got Lane Johnson, they've got Jordan Mailata, and they've got Jason Kelsey and all these other guys. But just the value and like it makes your quarterback so much better. And I don't think that there is that A.J. Brown trade candidate this year. So if you can get Jordan Addison, or if you can get Jackson Smith and Jigba, or if you can get, the TCU wide receiver, like, I don't know, the ceiling of that pick is just seems higher than the ceiling of drafting another Isaiah Wynn or another Cole Strange.
Yeah, I had a check, because my thought was with the Bucks won when they drafted Wirfs, right? In 2020.
Yes, I think, yeah.
So my thought was like, all right, so you have 2020 and 2022 with Orlando Brown Jr., but Orlando Brown Jr. was drafted in the 3rd round. So if you can draft well at tackle later on, then maybe you can address that, because I don't know. I really haven't grinded the tape on the tackles, but I did my research on the tackles, and it seems like there's not there's the Northwestern fella, Skoronski.
Yeah.
Did I pronounce that right? Not sure. It doesn't matter. But there's no top 5 guy.
Right.
There's guys that might have 1st-round talent that you could use a 1st-round pick on, but might not be sure things. So I wouldn't be surprised, as much as there is that glaring need and as hard as it is to find tackles, I wouldn't be surprised if we do see that addressed later in the draft.
Yeah, and I mean, the Patriots won a Super Bowl in 2018 after trading, what was it, a 4th-round pick for Trent Brown? Something like that? 3rd-round pick? 3rd for Trent Brown and a 5th?
They should do that again.
Yeah, just trade for Trent Brown again. Find the next Trent Brown, trade for him, have him start left tackle all season. Because like that was the year that they drafted Isaiah Wynn, and he was hurt all year, and they still won a Super Bowl. I don't know. It's not a apples to apples situation here and everything, so it is what it is. We've got a few more notes on here that we can get to rapid fire. I think it's kind of wild that Rex Ryan hasn't been in the NFL over the last 10 years or so.
Yeah.
And I don't know, the league has certainly changed, but I think I always assume, I don't know what I assumed he was doing. He's just been kind of like the 10th guy on ESPN for the last 5 years.
Yeah.
And
You'll see
now
him
he's
pop
getting
up like with just a dumbass take once a year.
Right.
And everyone's like, Rex Ryan, moron. You're like, is this a fun like way to go about living? I don't know. Probably pays well.
I don't know. I kind of think that he was a good DC back in the day. I think he could do it again. There's old DCs who are still good. Bengals defensive coordinator is kind of an older gentleman. What's his name? Fangio's an older gentleman. Like you can be an older defensive coordinator and still be effective.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the news is that Sean Payton's interviewing him for the DC job, which I don't know. The game changes, and as high as Rex Ryan's highs were, like, does anyone even remember his Bills tenure? It was 2 years. He was in and out like Grandpa Simpson, and I think they went like 500 both years. Remember, he downplayed Deion Lewis. Everyone in New England remembers that, and Deion Lewis ran right over them. But then that was it, 2016, and it's been a long time. And I think the game, Rex doesn't strike me as someone who's been studying like a Dan Orlovsky type of analyst, where
that's fair.
You're acutely tuned in with everything that's happening on the field every week. I think Rex follows it more broadly, just based on how he presents himself. That's not even a criticism. So I'm not sure I would be eager to hire him as my DC right now, but
that's fair.
I don't know. Sean Payton's kind of peaked in 2009 too, so
it's very true. Roger Goodell's celebration with Chris Jones. There's a video out there of him like giving him a huge bear hug, and Chris Jones picking him up off the ground. What did Roger Goodell say? I don't care how you pick quarterbacks.
Yeah, I don't care how you hit the quarterback. They were kind of necking, I would say, is the best verb. There was like, I went up to my wife after show, and I like, if this was her neck, I talked like this, and she like, she was like, "You're too close to me," and that's my wife, my wife of 10 years. So
That might be a Michael Hurley situation, not.
I mean, fair, no doubt, no one wants me that close. But the point is, if you were to do that to someone, and your wife saw it, wouldn't she be like, "What what's going on there?" Whether it's someone you know well or someone you just met. It hasn't gotten any less weird. That's my only take. It's not a conspiracy.
No.
But Rodgers shouldn't be that excited to celebrate with any player.
Right. Well, like one individual player. Yeah.
Yeah.
Slippery field in the Super Bowl. As we stated last Sunday, they painted the grass, which was kind of weird. Yeah, I don't know.
The more I watched, I don't know, I watched like the mic'd up stuff, NFL mic'd up or whatever throughout the week. And some of the replays, you're like, damn, we could have seen quarterbacks and running backs and receivers just tear their ACL. Like they're so lucky we didn't have 3 ACL tears in that game. And that's a year after Odell Beckham tore his ACL in the Super Bowl last year.
It's true.
I don't know. Whenever I've tweeted about it, it's like politicized. Like, do you want grass or do you want turf? Make up your mind. It's like this, like, I don't know. I don't know how Twitter politicized grass versus turf, and that players are bad for wanting better. But there's some subtle differences between grass and whatever the hell they played on the Super Bowl. And the Super Bowl is on a retractable field in the desert again next year. So something they ought to figure out before then, because I think they'd prefer turf to whatever the hell that was.
Yeah, it's not simply turf versus grass. It's turf versus like
good grass,
acceptable grass.
Ooh, we did lose as I don't know if I'm a big grass guy. Tennessee is flipping over to turf. No, so we've lost another natural grass.
Too bad.
I just like grass stains and like dirt and mud.
Well, how do you feel about paint stains?
Terrible, but it's better than not. Like, can we at least paint the artificial turf then? I guess throw some dirt on it.
True, that's a good point.
When you play football, you're supposed to get filthy. Yeah, like when teams come off the game with white jerseys still shining, I'm like, that's not right.
That's strange. Your last thought was Jets, Derek Carr, Lamar Jackson, Aaron Rodgers. What if they get one of them? What if they get none of them? The real question is, what if they get all three?
That would be awesome. I'd watch.
But I don't know. It kind of feels like Derek Carr might be like I don't know. It's possible Aaron Rodgers could go there, but I just don't see. I don't know. Aaron Rodgers in New York. I just think it's more likely he goes to Vegas, but the Jets have to get something there. I don't know.
Yeah. So the Jets won 7-10 last year. They scored in single digits 5 times.
Yeah,
single digits. 3, 3, 6, 6, 9. They scored in full football games. They lost all of them. They scored 12 or fewer 7 times and lost all 7 of them. So to me, if you can flip some of those and actually score a touchdown, we saw it in the New England game. I think both New England games, if you have a real quarterback, the Jets could have swept just as easily as the Patriots swept. So I think there is that. I don't think Derek Carr is great, but let's say they land Derek Carr. He's good enough, I think, to turn 7-10 into 10-7 with that team that has the defensive and offensive rookie of the year. That has, I think, a head coach who's figuring it out. I think you never know. There were some moments where he ran a little hot and maybe made some bad decisions, but Lamar seems like the longest of long shots. Rodgers seems somewhat more viable, even though like the cap situation seems insane. And
they brought in Nathaniel Hackett. Second year in a row, team's trying to recruit Aaron Rodgers with Nathaniel Hackett.
He's going to get another job next year. I know Aaron, and they're going to be like, all right, yeah, we got room for you. I just even though Derek Carr to me is the most okay quarterback in the history of okay quarterbacks, he probably is enough to change the dynamics there, and it's going to make the Patriots have to be better than they were.
Right. All right. Well, subscribe, rate, review, do all those good things. We will be back at least next week. We'll see if there's something worthy of recording a show on Thursday. Hopefully there is, because it's fun to have Patriots news.
I am fundamentally against the term emergency podcast, just for the record. I don't want to ever do an emergency podcast. Even if we call it that, I'll do it under protest.
We can call it.
It's not an emergency. There's never been an emergency where a podcast has solved the emergency.
That's fair.
It just doesn't exist.
Is there something like one step lower than an emergency?
Like an APB, maybe? Like a... APB, is that right? All points bulletin, all something bulletin.
What do they
We'll do
say
our
when you
research.
call like the local police department? It's I
If
don't
this is
know.
emergency, hang up. Call
Yeah.
911. Stay on the non-urgent matter, non-urgent
Yeah.
podcast.
Urgent podcast, somewhat urgent podcast. All right.
Yes.
Well, follow us on Twitter, do all that good stuff, and we will be back with you guys again soon. Bye bye.